Hello and welcome to When Women Speak. When Women Speak is a talk show brought to you by Toddlers Trust. Toddlers Trust is a women's empowerment initiative whose vision is the socio-economic empowerment of women through personal, academic, professional and enterprise development. When Women Speak is a show that discusses issues that affect women. Today we are doing a Mother's Day series, and for today's topic we are talking about motherhood. Joining me are some mothers and some ECT specialists who are going to talk to us about motherhood. Hi ladies.
Hi.
So we have Joanne, who is a mom, and we have Prudence, who is an ECT specialist, and Dorothy, who is also a mother. So welcome to our show.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much for coming. So to discuss our show today, we'll just start with Joanne. So we just want to talk about motherhood, like the first days. I'm sure you remember how it was. So tell us your experience of motherhood, especially the first days.
Well, I'm still an early mom, so it was difficult, especially I think bathing first was like the most traumatic part for me. Bathing this little baby, because you don't know if you're gonna hold them right and if their head's gonna fall back or you're gonna snap their neck. There's just little things that you get concerned about. And then is the temperature too hot? Is it too cold? When I had my first girl, she was easy. She loved bathing. Great. I got two children. One is only two years 8 months, and then the other one is just turned a year. So when he was born, he didn't like to bath. So you put him into the bath water and he screams. I'm a second time mom, but still I felt like it was for the first time. So you put him in the water and he's screaming for days, and you don't know if the water's too cold, it's too hot. Picking out, I take out the baby again, check the water again, maybe dilute it a bit, maybe make it more cold, put him back in and he's screaming again. So yeah, it was fun. But I mean, overall manageable. Sleepless nights obviously, like normal. My boy didn't like to sleep. Apparently boys sleep. So I was looking forward to a baby that's just gonna sleep the whole day. This one did not sleep at all.
But who says boys sleep?
It's rumors I heard.
Okay. I have a boy.
He didn't.
He didn't sleep. Sometimes boys have colic and they don't sleep because of colic. Actually, colic is more prevalent in boys than in girls. Yeah. So at night he will not sleep.
Now colic was more prevalent in my daughter, in my first born, in
really
Zoe.
There's no template.
Then yes, then in my son. So yeah, so I mean, I really so many people told me that boys sleep. So don't stress, Joe. Boys are gonna sleep. Yeah. This one did not sleep, like at all. So the whole day he'd go, no, nothing. I try to even maybe if I shake him a bit more, if I breastfeed him more, maybe he would sleep, but no sleep at all. So
there's no formula.
Yeah, but he slept well at night. Like he'd sleep through the night, no problem. But just during the day. So obviously, it is. I'm a stay-at-home mom, so there's things to do in the house. Yeah. But when he's small, you can't do much because you have to carry him. Yeah. So it's just about short of me sweeping and using one hand,
So that's how you do it.
Yeah.
So okay, so say there's a stay-at-home mom now who's watching and she wants to know, so how do I do this mommy thing and yet at the same time there's the laundry, there's the food that needs to be cooked and all these other things. How does she balance and get stuff done?
So the nice part was my baby was still, he was a very gentle, quiet baby. So I could put him in the car seat, for example, but if you don't have a car seat, you could look for something like a mattress or something. And I used to literally push him to the next stage. So if I was in the kitchen cooking, I put him in the car seat or on a play mat, but padded with blankets and stuff, and just let him lie on the floor. Put him there with me, and I'd be cooking on the stove. When I'm doing laundry, he's doing it with me. The hardest part was going to hang up clothes on the washing line, because you can't just. So I learned a technique of on YouTube of how to papula but not papula. So you use this like swaddle and like sling. So you just tie this. I had like a scarf, this big scarf. So I would tie the scarf up here and then put him to lay in here, like just across me. And that's how I used to hang up the laundry. But even still, because you're bending down to pick up something, so you'd hold him, so you could only literally use one hand, and then obviously hanging up the laundry was easier that way.
Does that work like before 3 months, like when their neck is still a bit jittery?
It worked fine because I would still just use my arm as a support system. So he would still be able to manage. So obviously before 5 months, I don't babula before 5 months.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I suppose you can. There's ways. Like the mothers try to tell me that you can babula him and let his legs sit like just hang out here. But the whole system was difficult for me to understand. So, and because I was so cautious about it and stuff, so I preferred to just leave him in the sling while he was still small. And then when he hit about 3 months, I'd use the baby carrier where his legs would stick out, and so it was easier for me that way. But even still, I mean, it was still a difficult process. But I mean, manageable. Overall, manageable. I used to cry, of course, because sometimes it's hard to do stuff. Because I'd be like, won't you just, sometimes you put him down and then he just starts crying. So now when he's in your arms, then he's better. So I didn't want him to also be an arms baby. You get these rumors of arm babies, they become problems. So
yes, and I think there's also that. There's what you're going through, and then there's all the opinions. And all the stuff that everyone is saying. And I guess finding what part of all that to actually take and use, and then what to discard. I think there's also
yes, and I think it's also learning your baby. All babies are different. So someone will give you advice on a baby that didn't cry. Someone will give you advice on a baby that slept. Or someone will give you, so it's just taking what works for you and putting it into practice, but not putting everything, because then you'll have a confused motherly situation. So just taking what you think as a mom is best for your child, and I mean not allowing yourself to be judged for it. I mean, people will judge you for the decisions that you made to put your baby on the floor, or to, I mean, I got judged so many times. My son would not wear a hat. He was that baby that would not wear a hat, and I would be judged so many times because my son is not wearing a hat, just because he's a newborn. And so yeah, I mean, it's just the whole of also being able to stand firm and stand strong, and being teachable though, because sometimes we stand firm and stand strong and yet we are unteachable. And so sometimes it's also important to be teachable.
So you just strike the balance.
Yes, striking the balance.
Like, you know, someone talks about how a cow knows to chew the grass and spit out the sticks, you know. So you receive information, like be able to pick, okay, this will work, this will work.
Yes.
And then you just find your own way. And I think it's also important to find your way. It's your baby, you know. You can get to know your baby. There's times when people would tell me stuff and I'd know that no, it's not right. Because I had that thing with my baby. I'd taken the time to say, okay, this is my child. I'm going to learn how to do stuff with my baby. And at a certain point, there's stuff that, you know, okay, for me and then my child, this is what works, this doesn't. So yeah, I think there's also that to find your way with your own baby. So thank you for that.
And also maybe as an addition, what makes it difficult for us, especially here in Africa, is that no one will ever teach you how to be a mom. You only discover as you go. So I think the points that we are talking about, that do what works for you is the best. At least now there's Google. During our time there was living and loving. So we would read from living and loving. So if the problem that I was facing was not in living and loving, then I will have to wait for the next issue, or just ask other people and then they tell you what to do. But I think the good thing about you guys is now you can go on YouTube. You can go on Google, ask Google, this is what you can do. So I think as a mom, I think as you are saying, some things you have to just look for what you want or what you think works for your kid. I think as a young mother, I think you're doing quite well.
And I mean also, like, before the baby's born, you think about so many things, because when with my first child, there's so many things that you think about that you get nervous about. There's a diaper change, you already don't know how to change a diaper. There's burping, you don't know how to burp a baby. There's rocking a bit, whatever, like bathing. Like, these are all traumatic things that we don't really know how to do until the practical arrives. Some things you can learn in theory, but when the baby's there, you're like, is this how I burp the baby? Is this how? So there's so much that goes on in your mind before you actually have the child. And I remember when my first daughter was born, first child, sorry, making like I have many daughters. So far one. When Zoe was born, you wonder, like, why are they crying? Are they crying because they're hungry? And that's the first thing that's in your mind. They're hungry all the time, and you forget that there's a diaper to be changed. They need to be burped. So, but then I remember a nurse reminding me in the hospital. So thank God. Sometimes we don't always have that. and they'll be like, did you birth the baby? And I'm like, actually no, like how do I birth the baby? So I think also for us as moms to also just encourage us to also help other younger moms or pregnant moms that are heading there, like just giving them some advice and teaching them. So if you can, go visit. I know that there's the COVID thing right now and stuff, so if you can, just go visit a new mom and just give us some 1 or 2 tips on how to birth the baby, because I mean there's so much that happens all at the same time. I mean, first of all, you've been pregnant for so long, so it's just been you. Suddenly it's you and another person, and then it's you and another person who's breastfeeding as well. So making sure how do you know that your baby actually is taking in milk, and then some moms struggle to breastfeed. So there's just so much going on. Never mind diaper change, never mind burping, never mind bathing. There's so much going on all at the same time, but you can do it.
Yes,
that's the bottom line, is that you can do all of it.
And what of sleep, like especially for new moms, the sleep deprivation. Remember, you're tired, you're trying to do all these things, and then at night you're sleeping 30 minutes a day.
Yes.
45 minutes you're up, an hour and you're up. How do they handle that? Because there's this whole fatigue and the strain on your body. How can they handle that?
They normally say sleep when the baby sleeps.
Yeah.
Right? So with Zoe it was easier, my first child, because she would sleep at least at certain parts of the day. But still, I'm not an afternoon sleeper. So sleeping during the day was so hard.
Also, there's housework to do.
There's housework to do. There's life still after that. So to be honest, it becomes hard. But I would encourage you to just take it one day at a time and sleep at night when the baby goes to sleep. If you can, knock off with the baby. If you can knock off at 7:30, whatever time that you put the baby to sleep, or knock off at 9, do so. Knock off mentally, just knock off and go to bed with the baby. And sleep as much as you can, especially when they're still new, still small, because you'll miss all the, and lack of sleep will make you a frustrated mom as well. And already there is lack of sleep, because you're going to keep waking up, and you're going to keep waking up to check, is baby okay? So there's so much that's going on in especially the first 2 weeks of being a new mom or being a mom. And so basically you just have to sleep when they sleep. I think there's no real formula. And I mean, already from when you're pregnant, you also struggle with insomnia. So a lot of moms tend not to sleep at night anyway. So I think it also the body gets you into the groove of not having enough sleep. So that by the time the baby comes, it's not a shock to the system that I'm lacking sleep. You're already into that system of not getting enough sleep anyway. So I think
so there's the frequent urination, and there's the general discomfort of pregnancy, towards the end.
Yes.
That does prepare you for
it does. Yes, it does. Yeah.
Please, just to add in there also, another thing that is also very important is a lot of people don't realize that when the baby is actually still in the tummy, the baby gets used to the routine of what it's like being in the tummy. When baby comes out, everything is new. So baby's also trying to adjust to a new routine. So it's important also as a mother to establish a particular routine for baby. So even if it means particular habits, if it means particular actions that you do with baby, maybe for example, baby will be breastfed, then you change them, then you wipe their face, then you put them down. If you establish that particular habit early on, especially within the first 2 weeks, baby learns that every time these particular actions are done, it's time to go to sleep. And you establish that routine with baby, and then it makes it a bit easier in that way. That could also help with
you're right, because I mean, even I still have the very routine that I started off with my first child, the very routine that went to the second child. So when everyone's bathing, it's bath time, whatever, especially nighttime routine is always the same. So everybody knows that by this time, when it's bath time, it's feeding time, everyone knows it's the same routine, and everyone knows after that sleep time. So you already develop. So routine is good, but not all babies are routine. But I think for yourself to function better, to be more sane, if you have a routine set out for how your day actually works, you'll function better. So I don't know if routine is more so for the child or more so for the mom. I think it's more so for the mom to function, but also the baby, like you saying, gets used to a formula already that they can easily adjust to. So
it's true. And I remember a certain lady teaching me how she will dim the lights, close the windows, close the curtains, dim the lights, and put out a warm bath for the child and use lavender. And after bathing the child, massage the child and actually get them ready to sleep. And she says actually they sleep longer. And I'm able to sleep like 4 hours straight instead of 30 minutes, 45 minutes. They sleep like 4 or 5 hours even at night. Says after I do that and I massage the child and I feed them, I put them down and I know I've got 4 hours to myself. So I guess we all find a way, and feeding it does work like for some babies. Okay, so let's just move on and talk about feeding, right? So healthcare professionals will tell you that you need to give your child breast milk exclusively for the first 6 months. Okay, for Zimbabwean women, we have the hustle, and besides housework, everyone is hustling. You know, there's bloggers, there's all kinds of business women that are mushrooming all over the place. Okay, so how practical is it to breastfeed your child for the first 6 months exclusive? And how can women do that? Because it's really important, hey, for the baby's health. I'm an advocate for that. I really think it's necessary. So how practical is that? So, and how can they then do that?
Well, personally, I was at home for the first 6 months, so it was easier to do that. I mean, for both babies, it was easier for me to breastfeed exclusively, and I didn't have struggles breastfeeding. I have 2 sisters on the other hand that struggled to breastfeed from day one. They would try, the babies just would not latch. They refused, totally refused, and because of that they were forced to do bottle, but they always prayed that they would be able to breastfeed. One, breast milk is obviously cheaper, so and 2, it's healthy. I mean, it's nature. That's how it's supposed to be. And when the baby rejects breast milk, it becomes hard already as a mom. So I watched them struggle in that, and so, but then at least they could then bottle feed. So I then became envious because my children didn't want the bottle.
Were they
so
expressing,
I tried to express
formula.
So for them, we tried to express, and
they don't want breast milk.
They did not want breast milk.
Wow.
The one baby would just cry and cry, and all the breast milk that we expressed would just come out of the mouth, and it was so frustrating because you're like, there it is. And we were even encouraged to give them in a little cup because I mean they were babies. I mean, they were newborn. So what do they know about a bottle? But then the day we put the bottle, they would suck a little bit, but not much. Put the formula in.
And they love formula.
Let's see. Yeah. So, but then I mean, so.
I guess that's a peculiar situation.
Yes, it's a peculiar situation. So in that case, I mean, I watched my sisters struggle in the sense that they felt rejection from their babies.
Yes, there is that. There's the emotional side.
So anyway, I'm going off topic. Yes, it's recommended that you do, but if you can, try and express early. So I mean, I did try by like day 3 or day 4 I was producing too much milk anyway. So I would express my milk, sometimes hand squeeze as well, which is very sore obviously in the first few days of breastfeeding. But you hand squeeze into a bottle and you give the baby the bottle to drink. My children both rejected the bottle. But if you can, and you are a busy mom and you are a mom that just doesn't have time for the breastfeeding, then I would recommend that you would express and then bottle feed. And then that way, at least if there is someone else watching your child or you have someone to help you, at least you can then give them to bottle feed.
So let me ask you this, like I'm just throwing this out to all the ladies. Is breastfeeding, is it important in just the nutrients in the milk or in the exercise of it? Is it holding the baby to my breast? Or is it the milk that's coming out that's important? I don't know if you understand.
Yes.
What's important there? What's the most important or what's the important thing? Is it the milk itself because it's nutritive or is it the actual act of taking my baby and holding them to my breast?
I believe that it's both, because you find that the bond that comes between the baby and the child comes at that point of breastfeeding, which is why then your sisters felt their children were rejecting them when they weren't breastfeeding. So it's important to have both the action of bringing the child up to your chest and holding them close. The child knows they're being loved, the child knows they're being cared for, but then they're also being fed. And the nutrients that come from the milk, which are extremely important. We cannot express how important the breast milk is for the baby in that developmental stage. So it's both the milk and the nutrients that come from it, and also baby being able to know that they're safe, they're held, they are loved by mom in that close embrace.
Yes. And hold the baby close, and I think that just affirms the child. So even if they bottle feed, the process of holding is still good affirmation for the baby.
So in essence, what we're saying is, say there's this woman who cannot breastfeed for whatever reason. It is important that even if they're using the bottle, you hold them that way. So I remember there's a lady who said to me, I need to breastfeed my kids, or at least hold them to myself, because if they learn it, and she said I have to breastfeed for the length of time that's recommended, so that by the time I stop, they are wise enough and clever enough to see that this is the woman from whom I take my sustenance. Tomorrow there's nothing I will give them, up to and including advice that they want to take. And I was like, really? It's like, yeah, you can't just give your child a bottle and sit them somewhere. Because tomorrow when you'll be the same person that wants to come with a word of advice, with discipline, with wisdom, they won't take it. Because they've never taken anything from you. I'd never seen it like that. I was like, oh wow. So she was saying it is important to just hold them. Whatever you're using, whether it's bottle or breast, to just hold them to you and look them in the eyes. Don't just be busy watching TV or whatever. Really express that love, that bond. You see me, I'm your mother. You get your life from me. You get the good stuff from me. And even tomorrow when you come in, like, you know what, the bond is already been created, as we'll talk later about raising teenagers and all. That bond will already be there and will already be created.
I mean, you also find that sometimes, like, the breastfeeding process can sometimes become boring. Like, yes, it's great to look at your child and it's great to affirm them, but you know, when you're doing it for 2 weeks and then 2 months and then 6 months goes by, like, the process can become a bit strenuous. So you often find that moms will do breastfeeding and probably be on their phone or watch TV while they breastfeed. I think it's also important though that at least somewhere on the line, so even if you have to be busy, so you have to, so for example, I run an online business. So when you're doing your work online, so for me it's the phone. While I'm doing my work on the phone, I do breastfeed, and I won't lie, I do that. I breastfeed and use my phone at the same time. And sometimes when I sit down, I'm like, okay, I'm breastfeeding. Oh, that's the time to respond to whatever, you know, to messages or whatever the case may be. So then I put him on the breast and I use my phone. And sometimes it can be an awful habit because you neglect to connect.
I think, isn't it possible to give him his attention as long as his eyes are open? Because breast milk tends to knock them up.
Yes,
so
it does.
when he closes his eyes, then you pick up your phone.
Yeah.
And
But I mean, there's obviously times in the day, like with him when he was small, he didn't sleep.
So he'd just
So he'd be like,
his eyes go open.
yes,
out.
the whole time.
Not even
like he's running.
wow.
No, he'd be looking at me straight in the eye, and I'm like, yes, my boy, you need to sleep, but no sleep was coming. So, I think it is important though. So night times, for example, obviously I knock off. So we have to knock off as moms, so that you give your family time. And so when I do knock off, still something that I'm still learning because I'm
knock
a new.
off from work.
Yes, knock off from work, mentally, physically, everything, like knock off.
Knock off.
Because we don't often do that. We knock off, you find you're going to bed and you're still thinking about, oh, that customer or that, I didn't reply that, I didn't do that. My husband has taught me, put the phone down, knock off. Mentally, spiritually, physically, knock off. So when 5 o'clock, whatever you got to set hours for yourself.
Yes.
So other people work into the night, other people, so whatever your hours are, there has to come a time where you knock off and spend time with your kids, with your family. And so at night especially, when I'm with him and we're doing the whole bath routine, so from 5 o'clock I don't hold my phone. So a lot of people know they'll try and phone me and the phone will ring and ring, even though they'll phone me during the day and still for ring and ring, but that's beside the point. Oftentimes I'll be busy with them. So but it's just being able to put these things aside and giving them time. So nighttime especially, I invest and I give as much time as I can. Even during the day I do try, but I won't like hustle on the side while doing but it's important to still give them that time.
So it sounds like it's a lot, hey? Moms really have, it's like we're carrying the world on our shoulders. So perhaps to end the session, let's just talk about the importance of self-care for moms, for new moms, and if that's even possible, because already it looks like our time is chock-a-block, but let's let's talk about the importance of self-care and support systems, and what kinds of support systems are available for moms.
Oftentimes, like now, especially with the COVID thing, there's been no support systems at all. I know a mom, a friend of mine, who, when she was pregnant, she was so excited because when I had my first child, who's Zoe, I started a baby group. And it was, the only reason why I started was because I was invited to one before. And I had gone to this baby group, and these were just moms that just came and they just sat and they had coffee and their babies just played. And it was so fun. Like, it was fun. But I realized that I also wanted it within my circle, but it was hard to bring my circle to that baby group. And so I just started one of my own. And with just the people I knew, I'm sure, when we first started, I think we were like about 7 of us. You were there. There were about 7 or 8 of us, like, that would come weekly. And then, but then we ended up being about 11, but not all coming at the same time. We'd always often have 7 or 8, maybe 4 sometimes. But that little support group that I started, I mean, it wasn't anything fancy. Like, I just get ladies just come to the house and they just bring their babies. Married or unmarried, we just invite ladies to just come and just bring their babies to come and play at my house. I had the privilege of doing that. I mean, and so yeah, we just being able to have people that you can relate to, that have babies similar age or older, that you can get advice from. Because sometimes we find that a lot of us are young moms and our parents are not active, or maybe your mom stays ekaya or something and you don't have access to them, or you just don't have a mom, maybe because your mom is late. And so sometimes it helps having younger moms or even older moms just being a part of that journey that can just guide you and help you. And it just makes you feel like you're not alone, you know. So like for us at our baby group, I mean, you just feel human.
Yeah.
Like your babies are driving you crazy and you're going mad, and like this is happening at home with your husband or with your boyfriend or whatever the case may be, and you feel normal when you come to these groups because you hear someone else talk about the exact same thing you're going through, and you're like, really? Like, I'm not alone. And support systems are so important.
Yeah.
And so now with COVID, it's become hard because a lot of people don't. And yes, we want to protect ourselves, and we want to protect your family, you know. And so a lot of moms are not opening up their doors to other younger moms or whatever, to other moms, and it becomes difficult. And so, I mean,
it's possible to do it online.
I think it is. I think it is, but people just have to have the time for it. The time for where you're like, okay, can I meet with other moms or can I chat with you, even just one mom? Can I just chat with you every day for like an hour? If you have access to internet, great, video call. Video call is always easier. If you just know a cousin, you know, it doesn't even have to be a friend. It can be a cousin. It can be maybe even someone you haven't spoken to in a long time. I would recommend that if you can, get in touch with that one person that has a baby that's maybe similar age or something, or find one. If you don't know one, find one. And just WhatsApp them, even just voice notes if you can. If you don't have enough data for call, voice note. Hi, how are you doing? You know, I'm going through this, and you know, like what are your experiences like? I think it's so important to have that support because it just makes you feel human. Trust me, you'll feel like your world is falling apart sometimes. You just sit and cry sometimes because we women, we emotional, we cry. If you're a woman who doesn't cry, coolies on you. But I mean, we often, that's how we process things. We just sit and cry and digesting stuff, allowing our minds and our bodies to align. And so support systems are so important.
And self-care, is that possible? Is there time?
Self-care is often hard.
It is.
It's hard, but it's doable.
Because I think I've never went to a mommy's house and found her put together.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I've learned to see past that until she mentions, oh my goodness, I haven't even bathed. It should be 3 p.m. and it's like, I have to go in.
Yeah.
Oh, kids, go.
Yeah.
So it's okay, you know. But I don't think I've ever seen a mom that's well put together. Even the most well put together of girls, when they became moms, suddenly there's this change. And it's not really that they're letting themselves go. I think we just need to understand that. It's that there's just so much to do.
There's so much going on, and I mean, you're new to this whole thing, so it's not like, I mean, you hear some people complaining that that's not how she used to be, or you know, you always used to look.
Yes, and I think that's the problem. We have a definition of self-care. I love rooibos tea. I have a huge purple mug. If I drink that thing like when it's full, that's self-care for me. It just goes to the places I needed to go to, and I'm okay. I can't have a when you're a new mom, you can't have a spa day, you can't do your nails because you're always handling babies. You can't. So I can't do all those things. But if I just had that cup of tea, if I watched 30 minutes of a soap, I was okay.
Yeah.
You know, I was just fine. If I watched the Steve Harvey show, I really love the Steve Harvey show. If I watched that, it was, I'm done for the day. I've self-cared enough. So I think there shouldn't be a standard definition. No, self-care is a spa day. You need to do your nails, your hair, your makeup. It should be whatever works for you. For someone who's just taking a walk, I remember there was times I put my baby in the pram. As soon as they could sit up, I'd put them in the pram, make sure they're covered and warm, and I'd go for a walk, and I just breathe. So I think there shouldn't be like a standard definition of this is self-care. Everybody else is not.
But self-care is also eating.
Yes, indeed.
I personally am a victim of that because I find that sometimes I get so busy. So in between doing the hustle and the children, and I don't eat. Sometimes my husband will come home and say, "Why are you so grumpy? Have you eaten?" And it's like 3 o'clock in the afternoon and I haven't eaten the whole day. And I'm breastfeeding. And so it's really, really bad. And so I had to train myself. I realized it was a mental thing. I was too busy taking care of everybody, making sure everyone else ate, and not eating myself. And in the process I got so thin, and yes, obviously breastfeeding also takes a toll, but I mean generally it was my neglect on myself. And this was like recently, so it was a habit that I had to get into. Now when I'm feeding my children, eat. So while you're feeding, porridge, 1 spoon for yourself, even if it's just cereal, at least eat something. It's getting something into the system, and that's all part of self-care, is making sure that you are healthy enough to, you know, like how when you're in a plane and they always say when the mask drop down, when you're in an aeroplane or whatever, make sure that you fastened first and your mask is on, so that you can then effectively put a seat belt on and a mask on your child.
That's so true.
Yeah, self-care also maybe. You have paused.
Are we paused?
No, we'll edit it out.
Okay, so self-care also I think for young mothers is actually a challenge, especially when you're trying to balance with the laundry and everything that we're talking about. The good thing for you guys is that you've got daughters now. Some of care of themselves, looking after their babies, because your baby and yourself actually, you tell a story when you are moving around. So people need to see something which is presentable. Whether you have the money or you don't have, with the little that you have, if you've got soap, if you've got everything, just make sure you balance whatever is there. And also even the food that you eat, make sure that with the little that you have, make sure it's a balanced diet, so that, as you're saying, your child can get good food out of you as well.
Making like on-the-go snacks.
Yes.
You can bake a few things. You can make stuff that you can eat on the go, because it's really hard to imagine a 7 colors for your lunch when you are breastfeeding and you're trying. But whatever you're eating, just make sure it's healthy. You know, I've seen people who pile healthy stuff on pizza, because pizza is quite simple. Easy. You can buy the paste ready-made, and then just pile healthy stuff. Make sure there's meat and vegetables on there, and you can have your pizza slice while you're going about your stuff. And at least it's something, you know, because I remember yesterday we had this lady, she's a dietitian, and she was talking about how women need to take care of what they eat, because if you're breastfeeding, that's exactly what's coming out of your breast. So by failing to take care of yourself, then you can take care of your baby, which is what you think you're doing all along. So yeah, thank you ladies for that, and with that we're going to take a short break. Do join us after. Welcome back to our show. Now we're going to be talking about early childhood development. Prudence, please help us. What is ECD?
ECD, first of all, thank you so much for having me on the show. ECD, like you said, is early childhood development, and the term is so broad and covers so much, because it's not just about how the child grows in height. It's about how a child develops mentally. It's about how a child develops emotionally. It's about how a child develops psychologically. How does a child manage to take in their whole world, and how does the child manage then to relate to their whole world? How does a child learn how to relate to other children,
to other adults, to other objects, to animals? So a lot of people think that ECD is just, no, let me take my child to school, drop them off there, the teacher will take care of everything. But ECD is extremely holistic. It's about what happens at school, it's about what happens at home. So when parents think about ECD, they shouldn't just think, no, I'll give the responsibility to the teacher. But we also need the parents involved in the child's development at that particular stage. So it's important for people to know that when you're looking at early childhood development, everything that goes into the first 5 years of a child's life will influence what a child will be like at 10, at 15, at 20, at 25. And a lot of people don't realize that.
No, we don't. So we got to think in the broad sense, and we also have to think also in the long-term sense, as in how what I do with my child in these early years will still impact them when they're 30, 40 years old. And a lot of people just need to make sure that they bear that in mind. Yes, exactly. So that's ECD in a nutshell.
That's how kids are made.
Yes.
Where the person is actually made.
Yes, exactly. So when you take them to a teacher, or when you're looking for somewhere for the child to go, it's very important to look at how will my child be developed as a whole, and not just whether they can identify colors and numbers.
Wow.
So, having had kids, I know there's one thing that puts a lot of pressure on most moms: milestones.
Yes.
Right? So by now their neck should be okay. They should be sitting. They should be walking. They should be. And so you go into baby call, and all the children are crawling, and just
Yes.
or he's doing the army crawl. I know mine did that. Like she just pull on her belly, and I was thinking, good God, what is happening? What is wrong with you? So we tend to worry about those. Should we be worried? And what milestones should we be worried about? And when? So when should they reach what milestone? And what should we do when they are not?
Right. That's a very good question, actually. But I would like to point out in answering that first is that every single child is different. So the way in which a child reaches, or the time in which a child reaches their milestone, will not always be the same as the next child. And I believe what worries mothers a lot is, oh my goodness, my friend's child, by the time
Comparison.
they were 2 months, they were doing this, my child isn't, and they'll be like, oh my goodness, and the mother panics. And it's just very important to realize, no, my child is different, and my child is unique. So mothers need to bear that in mind when they're dealing with their children. Generally, by the time a child is about between the ages of 2 and 4 months, their eyes will be aware of what's going on. And you find round about that age, yes, they'll follow you, and they follow you out of curiosity because they want to learn and they want to see. So their eyes will follow, and they'll interact with their eyes, generally in that regard. But just because it doesn't happen within that 2 to 4 months doesn't mean that there's something wrong. But if you find that you're reaching around about 5, 6 months, and the eyes of your child are not responding, it'll be a good time to take the child to the doctor, because sometimes they could have an issue with their sight. The child could be blind. But please, mothers, don't panic. Mothers should be calm about all of these milestones. By the time the child is about 9 months, right, between 6 to 9 months, they can sit. They'll be supported. Pillows, when it gets to that stage where you're putting the blankets around them and they're sitting, and they're looking around, their heads are turning, and they're bringing their fingers into their mouths, that cute little stage, when they're still manageable because they're not going anywhere. I can block you in with these blankets.
Yes.
I'm good to, yes. I'm good to have you there, yes. Generally by around about 9 or so months, they'll be there. Once they reach 12 months, now the movement is now happening. And you find especially with kids that develop very fast, they start pulling themselves up and they're standing and they're curious, what's on the table, what's over there, why can't I reach that, I want that, so I'm going to take myself over there, and they start, and the army crawl then also comes in around about that stage. By 18 months, you find a lot of kids are already up, I'm walking, how to move. If you hold their hand, they'll take those 1-2 steps, maybe fall down a bit, but then they'll want to get up and they'll want to keep moving.
because they'll be determined to then move. By the time your child is 2 years old, your child should be running and jumping. That's the terrible twos, as a lot of mothers refer to them as, because that's when everything gets pulled down. Yes, we'll call them the terrific twos. That's when everything gets pulled off the table. They're constantly pulling at your skirt. If they see something up there, they want to know, why is it up there and not down here with me? So they'll bring everything down to their level. But also because their development, in them pulling themselves up, they're strengthening their bones, they're strengthening their muscles, and it helps them develop and helps them grow. So 24 months, 2 years, the child should already be up and about and moving. And again, if by the time your child reaches about 2.5 years and they haven't had any movement and haven't had any motion, that's a good time to then consult your physician and find out and see if there are no challenges, and if there are no issues with your child by around about that time. By the time they're hitting 3 years, the words are already coming out, they're becoming demanding. Mama, Dada, I want this, I want that. No, don't do that. Mama, say sorry to baby. And they start being more expressive. And you find by the time they're getting from about 2 years into 3, that's when they also start connecting emotionally, but on a more mature level than when they were a baby. So then that's when they start wanting to learn, and they're curious about, why is this here? And because there's the movement to match it, they're now able then to move and discover for themselves as to, why is this like this? Why is that like that? Why is this color here? Why is this color there? By the time your child is about 5 years old, you have a mini person already. They know what they want. They'll sing, they'll dance. The stages where they're not really concerned about who's watching, but they're more concerned about expressing what's in their mind, their imagination. They'll connect even with their friends. They want to go play. They want to go have fun. When they're around about 5 or so years old, and that's generally the ECD age that we normally deal with. Yes.
And so, at what point must I be worried? Like, okay, so I think you've answered that. But is there what do I do? Say if they're not talking, what do I do? If they're not walking, what do I do? If they're not, when do I say, no, this has gone too far?
Right. For example, if you take the example of talking, most children start trying to say mama, dada at about 12 months, right? Especially the early ones. And you find the ones who then catch on really early, by the time they're about 12, 14 months, they're already mama, and they'll be making an effort to express and say words. But if you find that you're reaching about 15, 16, 18 months and your child hasn't started talking yet, then there could be a problem, right? Generally, what we encourage parents to do, especially before they bring them into the ECD stage, is that at home, try then as a parent to then teach your child, right? Teach your child how to speak, teach your child what to say. When the child makes an effort to say them, at least applaud them for the fact that the child made an effort, because what that does is encourages the child to try even more within a safe environment. But then if you find that within that safe environment that is still not working, it'll be good then to then look for a speech therapist and find out if the child does not have any speech impairment, or if maybe it's just a situation where the child is just a slow developer and a slow learner. If the child is a slow developer, do not panic. If you find that, because after being to the doctor and doctors confirm that they're a slow developer, all you need to do as a parent is be patient with the child. Don't lose patience, but make sure you also take the time to also help the child to form words, help the child to also develop their speech. If you find, the same goes with whether they're walking or if they're crawling. You find within the age ranges that I've given, if you surpass that by about 2-3 months, then that's the time to be concerned. Again, mothers should not panic, because when you panic, it doesn't help you, it doesn't help the child. Mothers need to stay calm so that the baby can also be calm, and so that the child, as they develop, they can also stay calm and understand that, okay, no, if mama is fine, it's easier for baby to be fine. So within those age ranges that I've given, about 2-3 months after each, then it'll be good to go for a checkup and go and have the doctor check and confirm if there are any issues that need to be dealt with, because then you also want something to be caught early so that it can be dealt with at an early stage. Yeah.
So Prudence owns and runs Happy Feet Placement. So that makes you an educationist, right?
Yes.
So you know about schools. I think that's one thing that that is big for most parents. Which school do I take my children to? So how do I choose a school for my child? How do I, and what should I look out for?
Yes, that's actually a very important question. First things first, and this is where a lot of parents actually make it a bit more difficult on their child. Start early. The earlier you start with looking for a school for your child, the better. A lot of parents don't understand that there's a lot of research that goes into finding a good school for your child. It's not just about which is the closest school, so I travel the shortest distance to get my child there. Because just like how every child is unique, then even in the different schools, each school has a unique offering for each child. So what you need to do is start early. Look at which schools are within a particular radius within where you are staying. When you look at that school, go and speak to the head teacher. Go and speak to the owner of the school. Find out what are the standards of the school. What are their health standards? What is their menu like? What is their curriculum like? What do they teach? Meet the teachers if you can. And unfortunately, I realized even in running the school that a lot of parents would only come and ask about school fees. They'd only ask about times, and that would be it. But you don't understand that the person who's going to be teaching your child, whether it be a male or female teacher, need to be able to connect with your child. If you struggle with connecting with this particular teacher, how is your child going to connect with that particular teacher? And you find some parents will be afraid to ask or be thinking, maybe I'm going to be seen as a difficult parent, or maybe I'll be seen as somebody who'll be hard to deal with. But it would rather that you be a difficult parent who is responsible about the development of your child than for you to try and be nice to everybody else, but then put your child at a disadvantage. What you also want to be looking at is the infrastructure of the school. Do they have a playground outside? Will your children have outdoor activities? It's very important for children to have outdoor activities. It helps with their development. It helps with the way they interact with each other. It helps also in terms of their mental development, which a lot of parents don't realize and a lot of parents don't understand. So it's important to also have a look at that. You also need to have a look at whether the school actually has a first aid policy or not. Because if anything happens to your child, you want to make sure that there is somebody who's trained in first aid. They have a proper first aid box which is properly stocked. You may not have an exact idea of what's in that first aid box, but at least if you look in it, okay, there are bandages, there's a betadine, there's plasters over there. Okay, so if just a slight problem happens to my child, or no, it's okay, the school will be able to take care of the child. You also need to know what the school's policy is in dealing with children who are unwell. Do they have a sick bay? If they do have a sick bay, what is in that sick bay? Because by regulation, most schools are supposed to have a cot. The cot should have a mattress. It should have sides on it for the child to sleep in. It should have blankets. It should have a pillow within that sick bay. And a lot of people don't look for that and they don't ask about it. So you then don't even know what the school's policy is if your child falls ill. Yes, they do phone you, but how are they going to be looking after the child until you arrive to pick up your child? Because it's very important, even by regulation, again, it's important that if any child is unwell, they need to be separated from any of the other children. So how is your child going to be separated? Even within the sick bay, when your child is unwell, is there someone who's going to sit with your child? Because for your child to then go into the sick bay and be by themselves, it causes stress to the child and it can even make the illness progress even faster within the child because of the increased stress. Is there somebody who's going to sit with the child? Is there somebody who will then at least be reassuring the child until the parent comes and picks them up? So there are the policies that you need to look up within the school that you're looking for. Remember, it is for the safety and importance and health of your child more than anything else, because you want to ensure that your child gets developed within the right environment and that they learn within the right environment, and should be an environment which is conducive to the child's learning and conducive to the child's development. So parents need to look out especially for those particular indicators and those particular pointers when they're looking for a school for their child.
Wow.
Okay, maybe as an addition, while we're talking about early child development, I had the opportunity of working with this lady. She was a former teacher at St. George's College in Harare. She's retired now and she's in the UK. Her name is Sally Allen. So she was a remedial tutor for quite some time, and she has written a book on identification of developmental challenges within children, especially from the early ages, the early stages as we were talking about. So in that book now, she actually comes up with very simple ideas of how to address issues as you pick them,
Yes.
or as you find them as your child is developing. So the simple things that our mothers used to do, like checking is the child moving, or
Yes.
following
Yes.
some stimuli. So that's why at times you find the people hanging those mobiles
Yes.
in the house, so that you check. And then the grip, to see if your child's grip is strong.
Yes.
You can put your finger or a pen and just check whether. So then if you realize soon that maybe it's not strong, it's an indication or a trigger that there's something that is definitely wrong.
Yes.
So then she comes up with some ideas, simple ideas of things that you can do within the home, of how you can actually address. So things like cerebral palsy, you find that some parents discover that their children have got cerebral palsy and they just dump them somewhere in the
Yes.
corner of the house, and they don't address those issues. So as a country, we don't have centers where you can take your child to. But if you are able to get that book, currently I don't have the rights to the book, but I was one of the people who sort of like piloted it here in Zimbabwe, in Epworth. So we used that book here, and here in Bellevue, I think we piloted it with a group of women. It's been translated into both Shona and Ndebele and English, but it's still sitting somewhere because she has moved in the UK. But I'm always in contact if I can talk to her. I think we just need a release from here to say
Yes.
this is what we can do. But it's a very good book that mothers, even in the rural areas or even in urban areas, can actually relate to and use, because it talks about training of the things that make a child be able to sustain themselves without really relying on others, especially if they've got developmental disabilities.
Yes.
So it teaches them about toilet training, just doing the simple things that a child needs to do all by themselves. So it's quite an interesting book, but its access at the moment is slightly different because the child is in America and she's in the UK. But if we need access, there are ways of us getting to that book, and it's quite an interesting book. It's quite a good book for young parents, especially those who, as you were saying, who don't have the support system. So if you don't have the support system and you read that book, then you have information that can assist you to say, I think there's something wrong with my child, and then you can assist as and when it goes.
Yes. And you know, another important point which Jo brought up when she was speaking earlier is the whole issue of actually doing research. In this day and age, we have information available at the tip of our fingers. And as a mother, you want to ensure that the development of your child goes as smoothly as possible. The more information you have when it comes to the development of your child, the better. So even if it's just something which you take for just 5 minutes, research, ask Uncle Google,
Yes.
how do I do ABCD? What do I do in terms of my child with ABCD? And it can help and can go a long way in terms of the mother helping the child develop, and even after, as the child is older.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that, ladies. I think I've learnt a lot, and I'm sure the moms at home have actually learnt a lot. So with that, we're going to go for an ad break. Do join us after the short break. Welcome back to our show. Now we're joined by Dorothy Tumbo, who happens to be a mother of teenagers, and she's going to teach us all about how to raise teenagers. Dorothy, welcome to our show.
Thank you very much, Nkanyiso, for having me around. Yeah, my kids are now past teenhood, but I have gone through the pace with them. So it's something that you need to prepare yourself as a parent. And as a parent, you need to start communicating with them, because as soon as they get into teenagehood, without you having created that leeway of saying we can talk about anything, then that's the period where they sort of like close themselves in. They will shut themselves in and you won't be able to reach them. And once you fail to reach them, then that's the end of the story. They won't be coming in to talk to you about things. So as a parent, the challenges that most parents face are that, one, they might not know what to do, and also the language to use. You find that our children will see us as outdated and them as current. So if that persists or if that continues, then it becomes a problem. So as a parent, I think for me, what has worked for me is I tried to move with my kids. I didn't want to remain behind as a parent. So whenever they would say something that I don't know or that I'm not privy to, I would go in and ask, what does that mean? So that next time when they say it, I know exactly what they are saying.
Wow.
So there's TMI. For usually my daughters used to say, if I say, or my daughter or my son, if I say something, they'll go, hey, TMI, mommy. So for me, too much information. I didn't know I was, born in the 70s, born before computers. So, so then I needed to. So every time they talk about something, I really wanted to know more about it. So that's the mistake most some parents do. They just let their children live their lives and they live their own lives, and they don't want to be part and parcel of what is happening in their children's lives. Children come into the house, you cook food, you serve food even on the table, or maybe in the kitchen, they just come and pick their plate and go and close themselves in their bedrooms. So there's need for family time, where you sit around a table, even if you don't have a table, sit around somewhere and talk about what happened during the day. So it's a time for you to be able to understand and to know your children. Because most parents will say, but why do I need to know about what is happening in their lives? If I give them a computer, I give them a tablet, I give them a phone, then they are okay. But there are things that they get from their peers that might be wrong or correct, which you as a parent need to either correct or reinforce. So if you are not doing that, then it means they will grow up with that information, and at the end of the day, abantwana laba will rely more on the information from outside than the information from within the family. So as parents, I think we need to actually sort of like be part and parcel of the growing up. So especially in the internet era, most children will go on Google and identify things and say, I know everything. But as a parent, you need to create time to talk to your children. So for me, what has worked with my kids is that it was open communication through and through. Talk about their friends, talk about their children, identify the weaknesses that their friends might have on their social lives, and be able to tell them to say, no, this social life that your friend is leading has got consequences like this. Either maybe they've already started dating and your child is not yet into dating. So that way, your child can sort of like restrain themselves. I want to share what happened to me when I was still a teenager. It's something that I've used even in most of the sessions that I do with children. When you realize that you've got friends and you realize that your friends are doing something that you really don't like, it's good to sort of like address them. I remember when I was doing my O-levels, my friends, my best friends from grade 1 started dating and doing also, they were now dating teachers, our school teachers. So I told them, my friends, I think the journey we've walked together is okay. I'm now stopping here. I'm looking for new friends. I actually talked to them direct, and then I looked for new friends. And if I tell you, today, all those friends of mine are gone. They never even left kids, because we were born during the era of HIV and AIDS. So most of them, they are gone. No children left behind because of the lifestyles that they chose. So as children, we need to choose lifestyles that sort of like extend our lives. Abantwana sibatsheleni ukuthi lokho elikwenzayo ku-wrong, lokho elikwenzayo akwenzi. Let's be parents who talk to their children endlini. Sihlale phansi sikhulume. What's happening? What are your friends doing? Ovuza bona laba abayenzakalayo. Ama-drugs wona lawa these days kuthiwa kulabo oganja cake. Your child would go to a party. Kulama cakes, kulama drinks which will be spiked. Nxa umntana ungamtshelanga ukuthi kulezinto azahlangana lazo khona ngalezi njalo, uzafika athathe cake leliyana alive. At the end of the day sedakile, and then wonke umuntu is on top of the child. So abantwana, they need that information. I remember also even one time my daughter, she was in Form 3. So there was a birthday party, there was a birthday party in Lobengula West. So what Puma, what mommy, I'm going for a party. And I sat her down and said, my dear, I'm not stopping you to go to that party, but ungafika khona ngale, don't eat cake ongalibonanga ukuthi lisikwe livelela ngaphi. Unganathi drink ongayivulanga, you have to open the drink wena ubusiyinatha. Ungeza sokulama smells ongana uwazwisisa mntanami. You can take yourself away from that place. Abantwana bafuna ama skills, just remove yourself. So mina ngashiya ngikhili umuzi wami, ngaphuma ngaye town for a salon. I think it was around past 1 when she left. At exactly 2:45 she called me. Mina sengise-town la, and she's, where are you? I'm home, mama. Why are you home? It's because laphana abantu besebenza, so abanye bebengani bayabhema imbanje, abanye benatha amadrinki engawasisiyo. So I just took off and got into the combi and went home. and then ngamthola sibili ehlezi ebrandeni at least i-Wi-Fi was on esidlalela le Wi-Fi yakhe ehlezi ngamthola ngathi mina I locked my doors, just sit outside until I come. Ngaze ngafika sibili ngamthola enjalo. So ungabona umntana wakho ese-empowered to that level because of the talkings of izinto yabo zikhuluma. Ungabona esefike khona pha you have achieved. I think she was Form 3, ngama 15 years old. Ungabona a 15-year-old child can make those decisions ukuthi hayi into ezenzakala lapha, then as a parent you have achieved. So as parents that's what we need to achieve, ukuthi umntana asimnikeni ama skills, singamelele ukuthi aye kufunda esikolo kumbe aye kufunda kwabanye abantwana, but as parents let's talk about it within our homes. Yes, it's a difficult phase, they throw tantrums, bayaba lama moods, bayaba anything, but let's talk to the attitudes. Talk to them, ungathuli. Ungabona umntana wakho esenza into uhlumtshela umntana nami these days ngiyakubona uyenza so. Do you want to talk about it? Maybe kule bullying eyenzakala esikolo, or there are other sorts of peer pressures that are happening. Kumbe uyathi ehambe etown bayamdonsa owindi. So those things you need to talk to that behavior. Uyibona, talk to the behavior. Uthi mntana unga-address umntana uthi wena uyahlanya wathini. Talk to the behavior. Mntana nami ngiyakubona lezi nsuku uyafika lapha uhambe uyehlala phansi uzithulele. What's happening? Then umntana will learn to open up and talk to you. So those things, they really do work with the young people, especially the communication part of it. Don't close them out. Talk to them, talk about their experiences at school, talk about who they are meeting, even before they go out, as they are going to a party. Uyangaphi? Mina ngisayahlangana lo mngane wami kwathini. Mntana manje uyakwazi, every time it's a lesson. It's a day to actually give a lesson to your child. Uyakwazi umntana wami umhlaba kawuchiphanga lezi nsuku kulalokhu. So uzabona ungaphuma, there's HIV, and there are these kids that are HIV positive. They will never disclose. That's another thing I have learned. Even me, if I have got a child who's HIV positive, I will never tell when I would umntana wakho is dating my child, but my child is HIV positive. That I will never do. Ngizabayekela kube njalo. And they will never actually say I'm HIV positive. We are not saying being HIV positive is bad, but we are saying disclosure at times it helps in the communication of information, so that I can make an informed decision to go to bed with you or not, because I now know your status. So I think our children need all this information. Ukuthi bafike ku level yokuthi right, I can be able to make my own decisions, because information pushes them towards good decision making. That's why we just want to say, as parents, give them as much information as possible.
Okay, so you're talking about communication, and that's good, that's okay. So how do parents then bring up the subject of sex and sexuality? Remember we're black people. Remember the cultures that we come from. In most families it's taboo. You can't just talk about that with your parents. Maybe that's a no-no. I remember someone saying when their boobs came out, they used to cross their arms when their father was there, because they thought the father was on chaya, because it had never been discussed. You're going to so it is easy for moms in generation to actually reproduce that with their own children and so how do you bring up that subject, especially considering our culture and the type of people that we are?
Yeah, it's actually a very tricky question, and it's actually a very tricky issue, because abantwana bethu, they will never come out directly and start asking us questions. The issue is because one, maybe we would have lost them somewhere along the way. I was talking to these ladies before to say ukuthi umntwana uzabuye le information evele esikolo ekuzwe somewhere afike kuwe athi mami, a simple one would be like, mama umntwana kanti uvelela ngaphi, maybe eku grade 1 or grade 2, and then you say awuthengwa ngaphi esibhedlela. You have lost that child, because one, the child will lose trust in you as a mother. Uza kuthi umama wami ngingambuza izinto uyangicambela amanga, so kasakubuzi lutho. You have already lost your child. So into ezinjalo, because it's a sex issue, ukubuya kwabantwana nje. So you, as a parent now, what you need to do is to go back to what the child knows. That's where we're starting. We're starting from somewhere there.
Start from what they know.
That's how we start sex education. Sexuality education has to start from what they know. So when they come in and they ask you, umntana uvelela ngaphi? For you to verify, you have to ask, can't we know what's velela ngaphi? Do you know something about it? Umntana uzakutshela ukuthi mina esikolo bangitshele kwathi anti. ukuthi umntwana kuza kuba nomntwana nxa kuza kuba nomntwana umama uzahamba emthatha esibhedlela. If you the age, because you are giving them age appropriate information as they grow, that's what is important. Nxa umntwana age ukuthi what the child has told you, you can reinforce or correct or tell them ukuthi yes, that's the correct information, but it's not something that ohamba ukukhuluma ebantwini. Akukhulunywa. Yes, you now know this is the information. It's a good. So what I'm pushing parents to do is, it's a good start actually. What I'm pushing parents to do is to go for the triggers. Izinto ezibuya labantwana. Kungaba le kiss on the TV and they start giggling. Befala amehlo. Then you have to ask about why are you giggling? What's so interesting about two people kissing each other? So those are the triggers that push you to start talking about sex, because sex will never come in and say talk about the behaviors that they exhibit when they see people doing those things is sexually related or sexually suggestive. Ungambona ebamba omunye umuntu ethi ngibona ubamba omunye so why are you touching omunye so? Then you talk about the issues about dealing with strangers, not allowing people to touch you, and a lot of information around why are you doing these things. So triggers, for me, I will go with the triggers. The triggers work a lot and they give you the latitude to start a conversation.
That makes sense.
It does make sense. It makes a lot of sense. And it's interesting that the point that Mama brought across about communication, it's so important when dealing with teenagers. But also the way Mama put it across, that communication is supposed to be two-way. Because so much in so many situations, especially with our black parents, communication is one way. And it's just one way, and the parents don't give the child a chance to also communicate back to them. And so Mama's point of communication is such an important one, such a vital one, especially when dealing with teenagers.
Yeah, okay, so I was a teenager like a few years back, but I really find the whole teenage scene quite different from mine. I was sharing with you all earlier how like there's things like vuzo parties and it's so different from when we were teenagers. It's like they lived like 20 years. It's like guys, I was this young like a few years back, but we didn't do half the things. Like I never heard of vuzo parties in my time. And for me it's just mind-blowing, and sometimes I wonder how parents of teenagers are actually handling it. So what do parents do? Parents of teenagers today, there's social media, there's all kinds, hey, TikTok, WhatsApp, Snapchat, you can't really keep up. There's so much that's happening. Nudes, now people can take nude pictures of themselves and post them on social media, and kids don't understand how dangerous that is for someone to actually own that kind of information about you. Then of course vuzo parties, then there's drugs. I've seen drugs like on TV, to be honest, but teenagers these days, they have these things. Like there's codeine, isn't there's cough mixtures that children are taking, they put in their juice bottles, and they're walking around with them. What do parents of teenagers who are raising teenagers today do to raise these kids in this environment? What should they do?
Yeah, it's a difficult.
It's a very
difficult environment that they are working in. Because one, parents will be moving around hustling. You are not there half the time to see what your children are doing, what they are eating, who they are socializing with. You are not there. And then also the kids themselves, there are those who have the money, and there are also those who don't have the money. And so, especially, and also there are some parents who believe that if I give my child everything, it means, including the money, then it means everything is okay.
Parents in the UK.
There are parents in the UK. Those are the ones with the children who've got massive houses where they can hold the vuzo parties. And the money comes in every month. Because the parent is not there, so if I give my child enough money, I think I will make the child happy. But at the end of the day, you are making your child's life more complicated, because the child has got access to expensive drugs because they've got the money. So I don't know how the parents can actually balance that out, to say, yes, I need to give the money to my kid, but will my child be able to use that money correctly or appropriately?
I think a guardian. Don't you think a guardian?
Or even a guardian.
Like if you really need to go out of the country, you can't take your child, then have a guardian, grown up to watch over them. I think children just need to live under someone.
It's actually a difficult challenge because even those in foster homes now, they can't even respect the parents that the guardians that are or the caretakers that are looking after them, because they will tell you point blank, you are not my mother, you can't tell me anything. So it's actually a very challenging scenario. I don't know how best, I really don't have a solution to that, but as parents, for me, is to know what is happening. Make sure you create time. Just come back home, sit down and talk to your children. Don't let them lock themselves up in their rooms. And you don't even, some even parents don't even go into those rooms. Yes, even teenagers can put signs. Knock
Not
before you
disturbed.
enter, or don't come in. Like for me, I remember there was a time my boy had some stickers on his door that were shutting me, the owner of the house, out of the room.
It's
So
your
if you,
house.
yes, it's my house, but you are part of, you are a person who's living in my house. I need to know what you are doing in there. And especially with internet, there's a lot of sex, especially with TikTok now. Then TikTok, you can ask anything, and TikTok will tell you what you want. You can ask how a baby is born. They now know how babies come because there are pictures or videos, everything that show them everything. How sex is done. A grade 3 child can know how sex is conducted by watching on YouTube, by watching. Some parents don't even put those parental controls on those sites so that their children can access them. So we're living in a world which I feel, for me, the only alternative is to give our children accurate information from the word go. As soon as they start being inquisitive, give them the correct information. Loko yokona uchela abantwana uthi gwayi, what, we need to tell them the names of those things.
Yes.
So that they know that when because already they are going on social medias and they are getting the actual words. Those words that we feel, those words that we say cannot be talked about are the words that they are seeing on the videos, or the words that they are hearing on the videos. So as parents, it's better we start them young. If you go to countries like America, all those developed countries, an 8-year-old knows the human anatomy as is. Yes, I know in the English language it's easier to call the names, but heavy, you can't say them out. But our children need to know. If you can talk to them maybe about the English terms, I think it's easier, because that's what they will learn at school also. So I think they need to, if they start asking questions, make sure you give them the correct information. That way you are building trust, and also you are developing the language within the child and for yourself also. Because most parents don't want to talk because they don't know what to say to their teenagers. So yiko kwenza singasakhulumi ukuthi mina ngeke ngikukhulume because ayikwazi. Mina I've had the opportunity ukuthi ngakusebenza from way back. So for me it's easier for me to talk about sex and sexuality, even with my kids, even with other people's children. It's easy. But another parent might find it difficult, as you are saying, because akukhulunywa emzini la sikhuluma inhlamba. It's called inhlamba. It's called inhlamba, but it's not inhlamba. It's the actual terms that the children will hear when they go outside your gate or your wall. So when they go outside the gate or the wall, they'll hear those words, which you call inhlamba. So when I do think, even if they've got a problem, will they come back and talk to you about inhlamba? No. So as parents, it's high time we move away from what worked with our parents on us can't work anymore with these kids that we are raising now. We are raising children in a very different environment, with internet especially. Internet has complicated a lot of things. So for us as parents, let's deal with the issues as they come, and accurately. We should not beat about the bush. Let's talk about it. We should be able to talk about the consequences of having sex. We should be able to talk about STIs. But kulama STI anje, lamabizo experience we need to know. If you don't know, refer them to Google. Go search on Google. Utama STIs are we anjani, and how are they? How can you prevent yourself from getting those? That information has to be talked about openly now, because our children are living it.
So we once had a burning debate on the Tutuzile group about sex and children. So there were women that were saying, you need to give your children sex education because they're indulging anyway. So you need to tell them, okay, this is what sex is, these are the benefits of sex, this is the downside of sex, this is what and what. And then there's other women who are saying, no. You teach them all those things with an emphasis on the downside, so that you protect them from all that. So in fact, I think the issue had been a teenage child, a very young child, I think 13-year-old or something, 12, who fell pregnant. And so someone was saying, no, they should have taught him to use condoms. While someone else was saying, no, they should have taught him to use AIDS. talking to my child about sex and sexuality, it's not just the ins and outs and the STIs. It's the soul time, it's the spiritual side, it's all of that. And as far as we're concerned, just abstain, you know. And it looks like it's impossible. Is it really so impossible for teenagers to abstain from sex? Because I could understand how it can be because of the media. There's so much sex on TV. It's unbelievable. And so people are stimulated every single day, every single moment. I remember I saw a poll the one time. There was a silhouette challenge on social media. At first, I didn't understand why there were actually women taking part in that thing, because that's just the objectification of women. But still, they were. And you're saying, okay, there's these teenage boys that are watching these silhouettes, and what's happening to them? And they're not are they not going to rape someone somewhere? Are they not being sexually stimulated? Aren't we increasing the amount of teenage sex? Because I personally hold that teenage sex is just wrong. I believe sex belongs to a marriage institution, and I believe it comes down to, even when we're teaching our teenagers stuff, and we're giving them these rights, you know, after some time, okay, you can go to a party. After, I was brought up to believe that rights come with responsibilities.
Exactly.
I'll give you the right, but please know that there is the fine print of the responsibility. If I'm allowing you to, like you're saying, you can go to the party, but don't eat ganja cake, don't drink spiked drinks, don't get raped. If you see them doing one, two things, because every right comes with a responsibility. You've got the right to do this because you've come of age, but remember to be responsible in this way and in that way. And so I guess my question is it really so hard for teenagers to abstain?
It's not difficult.
It's not, is it?
Especially when they know when they've got the information and especially the information about the downsides, as you say, the downside of having sex, like the consequences of all things that are associated with sex. Then they can make informed decisions. It can push them to not actually do it. Because as I was talking, that I know someone who reached an age of about 20, 24 without having sex, but still living in this same era. Because it's now up to you as a person to say, do I just go about having sex with everyone? But I want my husband, if you are thinking of getting married, I want my husband to be the one who's going to deflower me. So if you are thinking like that as an individual, then you can be able to withhold and not do. But the dangers now come if you are thinking around those, then you need to go to those parties or whatever, because that's what happens. A lot of things happen. Gang rapes happen, or gang sex, whatever they call it. They chain things. Everyone changing it. So as soon and also one bad thing about sex, once a child starts having sex, it's very difficult to stop. So as you are saying, abstaining is the best. Because once you start, then you start feeling that I need to have it. And then that's when you continue, whether with one boyfriend or with many boyfriends. And also with these young kids, when they start, even if they are pushed by their poverty to go into sex work. I once met a 14-year-old sex worker in Chirundu at a point. And I asked her to say, in your life, don't you want to get married at a point? And she said, I would like to get married. So imagine a child who has been a sex worker for 14 years, meeting your child at 23, 24. How would you feel? So I think we need also to even educate our boys to say, not every girl that you meet is a girl. So you need to also look at her as someone who has already started doing something. So you need also to do your groundwork and to do your homework in making decision about the person that you are going to get married to. Even during your teen years, what you do will actually affect what will happen to you in future. So you have to make decisions, informed decisions based on the information that you have. That's why we're saying, as parents, let's start talking about these things. That way we give our children information to be able to make our decisions in future.
That's awesome. Those are some awesome insights. Thank you so much, ladies, for having come through to our show. I think we have shared quite a lot of stuff, and I'm sure that the women out there are inspired and they're informed. That was it for today. Thank you for joining us for this episode. Do join us again tomorrow when we talk about motherless moms and single moms. See you then.